Well, hello Internet, my name's Seven, and thanks for listening. So, this past week, Star Wars Episode 8, The Last Jedi, has been released to fairly critical acclaim. However, the reaction amongst the fan base has been mixed, to say the least. In my previous video, I was essentially an early adopter of the Last Jedi It Sucks viewpoint, which at the time was in stark contrast to the professional critics' opinion that Episode 8 was actually great. Since then, it's been really good to see that I wasn't the only person who was, let's say, underwhelmed, and also to hear opinions from other people who were suggesting that it was good, or it wasn't that bad. It's always good to hear other people's opinions. I mean, we can agree to disagree. That's the wonderful thing. Not, yeah, that's not necessarily for everybody. Not everyone has that same sort of live and let live attitude, but cool. So, in my initial impressions / review of TLJ that I uploaded, you can hear in my voice there's a note of, well, I guess betrayal and confusion. You know, I'd had 2 hours of sleep after watching a midnight screening, and I honestly think I was still trying to process what I'd just seen. So, you know, in the comment section, people were like, oh, you're butthurt and salty and rah-rah-rah. And yes, I was upset because I'd been emotionally primed. I'd bought my tickets as soon as possible. I'd sat uncomfortably through a day of work feeling anxious about what was going to happen because, you know, I'd watched all the trailers, which were dark and ominous, and I was really concerned about my favourite characters. You know, Han had died, and I thought, oh, who else is going to die, if anyone? And then, you know, in this tense state, I'd watched The Force Awakens, which sort of buoyed me and made me feel a bit better, and then watched Episode 8. And so clearly my reaction that time in the morning, with the sleep that I'd been running on, was really emotionally driven. You can hear that I'm very raw, and, you know, that I gave the verdict that, yeah, it sucked. And I think I was shooting a bit from the hip there. So, you know, having had a few days to process my emotions, and, you know, take solace in the fact that other people felt similar, I thought I'd see what other people had written on YouTube, what they'd written in the comments section, what they'd videoed on YouTube, and in some, you know, written reviews. I went and saw The Last Jedi a second time. It was Monday this week, at the Nobody turns up to the 7:30 p.m. session on a Monday night. The theatre was half full, maybe had 100 seats. So I watched it, and that was fine. At the end, 2 people just jumped up and started clapping wildly. They're like, yeah! You know, clearly enjoying what they'd seen, but there was this confused and slightly hostile silence that descended, and they stopped pretty quickly. Yeah, it's pretty indicative of the split on social media and the internet as well. You know, some people are like, yes, and everybody clapped, and then other people are like, yeah, everyone left feeling down. And, you know, I've been told many times that, you know, only the stupid people don't get the film's nuances, you know, that sort of thing. It's an amazing movie, you're just stupid. So, yeah, it's, you know, insert one of those Rick and Morty references there. But anyway, so now having had a moment to process, to have a cold, critical review, does The Last Jedi still suck? Well, I think I'd like to take some suck points off, because I was very wrong about a number of points. Namely, Frank Oz, alive he is, yes, and he did sound better the second time around. The Jedi books hadn't been burned, they'd been taken by Rey and put on the Millennium Falcon. So they weren't burned, that was good. I actually heard about the cloaking plot device this time around, so when I didn't hear that the first time around, suddenly there was a cloaking device, but none of the ships conventionally visually cloaked like, you know, a Predator ship would, or, you know, whatever. So it was cloaking on the scans. So I didn't hear that point beforehand, and then suddenly this thing was happening. So now I understand about the cloaking device. And, you know, I largely understood about Luke Skywalker's character development as well. I got it. Yeah, I thought about it some more, and I was like, yeah, okay, I get it. I get what they're trying to do. Another small thing, I also heard, or put 2 and 2 together, that they'd The shields on the calamari cruiser were facing towards the rear of the ship because it was getting shot at, and at that time the bridge was blown out by TIE fighter fire or missiles or something. So that made sense. There's precedence for that. Having all the shields down one end, the front end's exposed. So yeah, I get that. Additionally, Acto doesn't have a binary star, but I see now what they were trying to do is that when Luke was dying, he saw a glimpse of home. You know, the binary sunset on Tatooine, and it was a little throwback to the good old days. So, you know, I really liked that. That was actually a nice touch. You know, so I was awake enough to appreciate that instead of being confused. So, on those points, I'm happy to stand corrected. Thank you very much to all the people that told me or berated me in the comments one way or another that these are the things that I missed. So very, very good to say that I was wrong on those points. So that's good. So the above collection of points are a bit like finding an extra life vest on the Titanic. You know, the ship's still going down. And I mean, the three icebergs, or the largest, pointiest ones, were Space Leia, Canto Bight, and Rose. I think everyone who has their eyes in their head would sort of accept that the Canto Bight section was, at the very least, superfluous to the plot. There's so many other things that they could have done. So, you mean you can add extra sucky points for incorporating social conscience themes, the perhaps overuse of CGI, and, you know, the hit-and-miss approach to creature creation. One or two in particular aliens stood out for all the bad reasons. You know, the vomiting gremlin in the suit, I guess visually he was well done, but, you know, it is possible for you to be vomited on, possibly, in a casino by someone else in real life. And it's not funny. It's just gross. And that's the thing. It wasn't sort of funny kids' humor either. Yeah, and then visually there was this other weird alien that looked like a collection of bowling pins, but sounds sort of like a opera singer. The fancier horse things are coming towards her, and she's like, oh, and then gets run over or something. That particular one looked really bad. That character or Muppet, puppet, whatever, looked really bad. So, yeah. And, I mean, let's just cut the scene. Iceberg number 2 was the Rose character. Useless character. In fact, you know, people have gone to say that she's probably done more to hurt the rebellion with some of her choices that she's made than to save it or help it. And seems to be wholly and solely there to provide a social conscience to the franchise, which Star Wars doesn't really need, and I don't think anybody asked for. Yeah. So I think she should have been left on the cutting room floor, but unfortunately she is around, and it looks like she's going to be around in Episode 9. So all we can really hope is that hopefully the Rancors get out and gobble her up. That would be nice. Also, in the next film, we get to see a love triangle that we never asked for, so that'll be excellent. Really not looking forward to that at all. And Rose obviously will be front and centre, lecturing us about not killing the people we hate, but saving those we love, and other lovely platitudes which sort of dovetail in with various political agendas. You know, so you only need to look at, you know, the media outlets cheering, you know, the diverse, brave, strong, feminine character to realise, you know, you're getting some leftist product placement there. Space Leia has already become a meme. You know, need I say more? I still maintain that. So those were the big negatives for me. You know, if you got rid of those, perhaps it's something could be slightly better. But then there's all the smaller things. I still maintain the fuel plot could have been better. I'll talk about that in another video if I make one. Also, thanks to people for pointing out that Laura Dern was the actor who played Holdo. Most people will reference her from Jurassic Park. You know, it's about 25 years old now or something, so I'm sorry if I didn't immediately remember her name. You know, and then people have said, oh, well, you know, she's done other things too. She's a multi-award nominated actress. I think she's picked up an Emmy here and there. That's great. I think she did a bad job at this point in time. You know, and also for the record, the first half of Jurassic Park, she was the intellectual, love, sexy interest, and the second half, she was a damsel in distress fleeing from velociraptors. So it's not like she was a feminist tentpole figure, or she had a lot of depth. I'm pretty sure they could have thrown anybody in the role. Yeah. Anyway, Laura Dern. So, the list goes on. The green milk scene, the leaky medical bag scene, the trolley phone call humour, all the plot holes from the Force Awakens and beforehand, Snoke being killed off, please don't eat the porgs, Chewie, being a carnivore is bad, that sort of thing. Ultimately, I think, people were most upset about the characterization of Luke Skywalker and his manner of death. As I mentioned before, I understand what they've done here. I'm sure we could have a great academic discussion about it, but despite all the reasons for proceeding with his characterization the way they have, I believe it was the wrong thing to do in terms of fans. I'll get to that. So, Luke Skywalker, in my mind, will always be, doing a somersault up from certain death in the Sarlacc pit, green lightsaber ablaze and smacking around Jabba's goons, only to make a quick getaway with the help of his friends that he's rescued. Return of the Jedi, that's the opening, or not the opening, but, one of the main action scenes. And that's him in my mind. And we saw some brief moments of action with the character, when he was a self-titled master in Return of the Jedi, or when he was barely trained in Empire Strikes Back on Bespin, but we haven't really seen anything more. He's lifted some rocks, he gave Yoda a piggyback. So, to give you a similar example, if you take Hugh Jackman as Wolverine, let's say, we've seen this guy play that character for something like 17 years, almost not on an annual basis, but every couple of years, Hugh Jackman is Wolverine. We've seen him be rough, be smooth, kick butt, have his butt kicked, show a softer side, be in love with someone, show loss, and really lose it and go nuts. So he's been at it for almost 2 decades, and so with fans that have seen him like this, there was a time for it to end, and we see his ending in Logan. That if you've haven't seen that movie, see it. It's worth watching. We understand that all things come to an end, and yes, there are sad endings to all heroes. It is depressing, but it's time to say goodbye. And we know that he'd had a good run, and he went out like a boss. Oh yeah. So Luke Skywalker never got that chance. As far as Disney was concerned, they took it in a different direction. Maybe it was that thing of a bold new direction for the franchise. Maybe it was more intellectual. Star Wars has progressed past Saturday morning cartoon sort of action. But the fans never got to see Luke Skywalker as anything but a defeated old man. There's old men and there's old men. You think of a little bit further back, Clint Eastwood. As an old guy, he's tough as nails, and in the movie Unforgiven, which was a Western, came out ages ago, he was a bit of an anti-hero there, and he was a tough old dude, and he went out with a bang. And also Gran Torino, there was that self-sacrifice sort of thing. Clint in these movies, he was a model of masculinity and of self-sacrifice. Whereas here we sort of get this pacifist Jesus Gandhi self-sacrifice, and it lessens it for me. You've got Terminator 1 and Terminator 2. That again, masculine characters self-sacrifice. So why not have Luke Skywalker turn up in person to crate and turn that battering ram cannon 90 degrees to cut the legs off the ATM-6s, and then push a couple of them into each other in an awesome display of force power that he's fully in the Force, and the Force is with him. If he has to die, then sure, he has to die. And let's face it, the Skywalker saga needs to come to a close. But make him a man in the process, So, yeah, I get The Last Jedi, and especially that it's a product of its time, like all art. Masculinity is toxic now. It's not something we talk about, children or young boys are supposed to have feelings and whatever, and I agree with that, but there's still a place, I think, in entertainment for strong masculine role models of the old style, let's say. Did I want to see that school of thought in this particular interpretation of Star Wars? No, I did not. People may say that that's, wow, you've got a smacking sense of entitlement right there. And perhaps I do. But put it this way, I think we like to throw around the word entitlement at the moment with visions of people who, do particular university courses that have no job outcomes but expect a high-paying job at the end of it. Or alternatively, that, unemployed people who aren't looking for work or aren't interested in doing anything, they want something. They want the fastest car or the newest iPhone or whatever, thing that they want. They haven't done anything for it. I mean, the difference here is that these people have done nothing, but they want a handout from society, and that's their entitlement, versus what we have here, the Star Wars fan base, which is essentially a group of people that for 40 years have, paid their dues. They might have raged at the prequels, they might have raged at The Force Awakens, or that Han shot first, or whatever, on the Christmas holiday special, but they saw those things. They've been there, they've seen it, they got emotionally invested, they dressed up for midnight screenings, for birthday parties, for, any reason. You've got the charitable sort of dudes in the stormtrooper outfits, stuff like that. They spend buckets of money on merchandise, like DVDs. Oh, we're going to buy this year's special edition DVD, and then next year, of course, there's a Blu-ray that comes out. Well, I'll buy that too. They spend thousands on prop auctions. Here's Han Solo's blaster from Empire Strikes Back or from Return of the Jedi or whatever. That goes for hundreds of thousands of dollars. The franchise would not have been worth $4 billion had it not been for Star Wars fans. These guys and girls ingrain their children to love Star Wars better than all the advertisements that Disney bring out, all the trendy toys and the lunchboxes and whatever. They are passing on a love for the movies, for the franchise, for the Force. So all I'm saying is that, for The Last Jedi, would it have hurt Disney at all to have just used this entire trilogy like a greatest hits compilation and said from the front stage, "This one's for the fans, yeah!" And then play some riffs that we know, a good chorus or two, and rock out. Wouldn't have cost them anything. People would have been happier. Who knows? Just as a final note, look, I didn't expect my first video to get over 200,000 views. I was surprised when it got 700. I went to sleep, I woke up, it had 2,000. Then I thought, I'll leave it. And one of my friends said, "Hey, that video? It's got 10,000 views." And here we are. So I did it sort of unscripted. It was barely coherent. And I went from having a combined set of views of about 60 views over a couple of videos to now I think I'm over 250,000 views. And I also picked up, I think, 500 odd subscribers. So thank you. But for those people that subscribed, I'd like to ask you why you subscribed. And if you have any, like to, offer any suggestions in the direction of the channel, please let me know. I mean, I'd initially created the channel for gaming, of all things, specifically Total War Warhammer 2, which I enjoy playing. But, I'm happy for other suggestions. If you want to hear my thoughts on Star Wars, I'm happy to talk about Star Wars or some other stuff. It's up to you guys. My next video that I'm thinking about is talking about repetition, iteration, and revolution in The Last Jedi. I mean, it sounds like a ridiculous academic paper, but I had a thought, and whether that comes out or not in a coherent manner is different, but we'll see. So anyway, that's it from me this time. None of this Godspeed rubbish. May the Force be with you all, and rock on for the rest of the week. So that's it. 7 out.